start drinking.
I don't think that's true in this league.
First roar from the Lion. Here's Alvarez trying to put the game away. He does! Down goes the defender. Soloniak fires! Scores!
Hello and welcome to Chicago Fire Weekly, presented by the Private Bank, the official bank of your Chicago Fire. As we are each and every week, we are live at the Heineken Pub 97 at the Private Bank Fire Pitch. We're here each and every week. And next week's show will be on Tuesday. I'll give you another reminder a little bit later on because the Fire play next Wednesday night. Fred Hubner along with Frank Lopez, Paul Tenorio. And guys, the 3-game road trip is over. Just 1 point in Los Angeles. We're going to take a look at the highlights, but it was a game where you definitely could have had 3.
You definitely felt great. I mean, you watched that first 45 minutes, and we talked about it, Paul and Fred. I thought it was probably the best 45 minutes of the season. I think the changes that LA, I think, were forced to make, I think helped them a little bit. I think they came out with a sense of urgency. I mean, that happens anytime you're 2-0 down, but then, more pressure and stuff like that. But it's unfortunate, I think, through 2 set pieces, and I think, obviously, the second half of the game, I think there were moments where I think the Fire could have handled it better, been better with the ball, better decision-making, playing more simple, not forcing the ball. I think momentum kind of turned a bit.
Let's take a look at the highlights. There were a lot of good things, especially in the first half of the game on Saturday out in Los Angeles as the Fire were out there playing the Galaxy, wrapping up their 3-game road swing. The fireworks going off before the contest and the smoke clearing before the game got underway. Chicago Fire getting on the board first. David Akam getting the ball to Nikolic. Akam into the box. He gets it back to Nico, and Nico goes down as Van Dam comes close to him.
So smart. I think, Nico, you see in that play, it's almost like he knows Van Dam is coming on that tackle, and you can just see it, just anticipates, drag his foot a little bit just to get that contact, and no doubt about that play.
And then on the second attempt, after the first one was called back, David Akam puts the ball in from the penalty spot. Here you see Akam a little bit later on, just a little bit later on, gets the ball to Nikolic. Nikolic gets the keeper. He beats him, makes it 2-0 in favor of the Fire early in the contest, just 16 minutes in.
And that's what we talked about, Paul. I mean, I think where the game, the evolution of Akam in the open space, not just to get his head up, and then when you find Nikolic in that spot.
Corner kicks, that was a problem as set pieces. Here you see Stairs getting open, putting one past Matt Lamson, making it 2-1.
And, Frank and I have debated a couple times zonal marking. I feel strongly in one direction. Frank, as a coach, is kind of explaining to me in the other direction. But if you're going to zonal mark, you've got to be aggressive going to the ball. Don't let somebody cross in front of your face like that. There has to be good communication. And unfortunately, on both of these goals, it just wasn't there.
Fire had a couple of chances. There you see Soloniak hitting the crossbar on a beautiful ball from Dax McCarty.
I tell you, and this was an unbelievable save by Rowe, because I was sitting it from our point of view up there. I saw that ball going into the back post, and he just got this little fingertip on it just to get enough on it where it just hits the post and goes out.
And in the 94th minute, we thought the Fire had a winner, but Nikolic just barely offside, and the game ends 2-2. You can see how upset Nikolic was. We'll see the replay here, just barely offside.
Look, he starts the acceleration a little bit early, and that's just knowing yourself. He knows he needs to speed up early to be able to beat the defenders, and just a step too soon, and that allowed him to be a little bit off. If he just waits for that ball to be played before he takes off, he's onside. Very, very difficult moment there because they were so close to 3 points, but that's kind of what we talked about. You have these moments now where you look back on the season and you're going to say, here were these moments where we could have gotten a point here or 3 points there, and I think this is another one of those games.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think this is a game where, if you're in the playoffs and you're saying, man, that home field advantage, I missed it by 1 point or whatever. You look at games like this where, based on the first 45 minutes, you feel so good about the team getting 3 points, but I think things like this happen. In the end of the day, you say 1 point, which, I think very easily they could have taken 3, but they're still, the start, I think, has been great. We're going to talk about this a little bit longer in the show, too.
What were some of the problems in the first or in the second half?
Yeah, I think, first of all, Frank was right. This is a team in L.A. who was under a lot of pressure themselves, and they came out in the second half and they played differently. I think in the first half they gave the Fire way too much space to work. And, you know, in the second half, they were pressuring a lot more. And I think we have some video of some of the things that went wrong in the second half.
I think more, you know, there was more urgency in that play. They pressured more. But these are a little bit moments where I think that the Fire had the ball. And, you know, they were moving the ball well. You see the low block from L.A., and then, you know, I'm just saying, I'm picking one play out where I think Connor has an opportunity now to keep that ball moving, and he dribbles right into the pressure. And I think you lose possession like that in moments, and then momentum kind of turns because they were pressuring more.
And here in this play, you've seen just a little bit falling asleep and defensively by Solignac, not able to close things out. And LA's pressuring high, keep the ball in the offensive third. And then here, this is what ends up leading to the corner kick. That leads to the goal, Frank. But right here in this moment.
You're a little bit deep. The ball comes out. You know, they move numbers up, so they're able to win second balls. But, you know, an opportunity for Vincent there. Clear the ball up the field. You know, in moments you don't have to try to play out of the back. You know, you clear the ball as high as you can up the pitch. You know, you can move your team up the field a little bit. You get an opportunity to rest. But, you know, it keeps going on. But I think this moment here where Alessandrini gets the ball, wins the corner, and then the goal comes from there. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about the zone marking, man marking. I think every system has its strengths and weaknesses. I think for me, in the end of the day, it's for the manager to evaluate the team that he has and choose the right system. But in the end of the day, for me, if you do play zonal system, I know for a fact that the amount of time and training that's required, it's a lot longer than when you play a man-to-man system.
And I will say, I mean, it's the first two goals I think have been given up off set pieces. And again, I mean, this is about little moments in games that can turn things. It's allowing a guy to cross in front of your face in a zonal marking on a corner kick that leads to a goal. It's not clearing the ball with enough power as a fullback to allow the defense to push up and reset and pressure higher so that you're not pinned in. It's giving the ball away in the attacking third in a moment where all you have to do is turn and play it back to Dax and move the ball and keep the ball. And those little moments, they add up over the course of a game. They allow a team like LA to build a little bit of momentum. They allow them to get a goal that starts to bring them back into the game. But these are the moments where when you sit down and you watch the game back, or you're sitting in film room this week, you say, we have to clean this stuff up. Over the course of the season, we have to clean these little mistakes up if we're going to be a playoff team.
And we'll talk a little bit more about where the Chicago Fire season stands after this three-game road swing as they are back home this weekend. A Saturday night game against the Seattle Sounders, an 8 o'clock start at Toyota Park. Get your tickets at chicago-fire.com. That's this coming Saturday. Clint Dempsey and Jordan Morris and the Seattle Sounders coming to Toyota Park. You're watching Chicago Fire Weekly, presented by the Private Bank.
Heineken tastes perfect every single time, and that doesn't happen by accident. It takes 15 years to become a Heineken brewmaster, almost as long as it took me to master this look.
She came to meet a man. She found an angel. What's his name now?
Still practicing. It takes 15 years to become a Heineken brewmaster. There's more behind the star.
The heat will wear you out real quick. And we've been through some hot ones. It's very physical. You gotta take care of your body and stay hydrated because every moment matters. That's why I drink Advocare Hydrate. I've got a job to do.
John, you're home.
What's going on?
It's this paint. Valspar Reserve. Nothing stays on the wall. Not anything. Not any of these things, John.
Right. Valspar Reserve. Super stain resistant and scrubbable.
And this color, still perfect.
Yeah, looks great, Val. How much coffee have you had?
3 cups. 4.
Valspar Reserve Paint and Primer with Hydrochroma technology. Now the colors you love stay the colors you love. Exclusively at Lowe's.
Welcome back to Chicago Fire Weekly, presented by the Private Bank. Fred Hupner, Frank Lopez, Paul Tenorio will be joined in our next couple segments by Chicago Fire goalkeeper Matt Lamson. We're going to talk a little bit about zonal marking and man marking and hybrids and playing man on some guys and playing zone on others. The two set pieces, and like you said, the first two set pieces that the Fire have allowed goals on this year. But let's go to the coach. He can explain some of the things about it.
Listen, I think for me, my philosophy is I think that the players that you have dictate whatever system you're going to play. I think when you do give up goals, everybody looks at the system. I think both systems have strengths and weaknesses. I think for me, the biggest criticism when you play a zonal system is that everyone thinks that you allow the attackers a running path to get a jumping start. But that's not the case. I think if the players are positioned in the right way, I think they're in a position where they block the runs of the attackers. Okay, so they don't have an opportunity to get a running start. And at the end of the day, no one says that you're static. No one puts you in a zone and say, don't move from here. It's still about being alert, reading the situation. I think in both instances, I think it's a situation where the Fire, they get caught ball watching. I think in the first goal, the player gets in front of the player. You have to attack the ball, So I think for me, when it's done correctly, I think there's a better structure, to the team. I think it takes away... when you man mark, I think players can move in one way. If you have the strength, they can focus on one player. So I think that both systems have their strengths and weaknesses. But the zonal system, if it's done the right way, I think you have a better structure within the team.
And I think it's also worth remembering going into this season, MLS came out, or Pro came out rather, and talked about their points of emphasis. And one of those points of emphasis was contact in the box during corner kicks, the pulling and the tugging that happens before the kick is taken, and keeping an eye on that for penalty kicks. And I think that absolutely has to influence coaching in Major League Soccer to say you have less of that, a chance of that if you are zone marking versus man marking. So in a way, you're decreasing the odds of a penalty kick being called, especially early in the season when those officials have those points of emphasis in their head. Those usually tail off towards the end of the year. But I think that probably factors in with a lot of MLS teams playing in the zonal marking. You remove that opportunity for a penalty kick, and you also train it enough that you should have solid defense on corners.
Right, and at the end of the day, it's about the players. Like if my team is short, I'm not going to zone mark because then I'm just committing suicide. That's the point. I think you have to assess, and I think the Fire have been very well. But I think it comes to the point in the second half where they're constantly under pressure. They get a little fatigue, and now you think there's a moment to relax. And the moment you relax in set pieces like that, you pay the price.
Right now, the Chicago Fire, 1 point in that 3-game trip. So through 9 games, they've played 4 at home, 5 on the road, 3-0-1 at Toyota Park, which they returned to on Saturday, 0-3-2 on the road. 12 points, though. That's an improvement over last season.
Yeah, 12 points through 9 games right now for the Fire versus 7 points through 9 games last year. So you see a 5-point jump for Chicago early in the year. And obviously, that's a positive. You want to see growth from year to year. But they enter into a very important stretch right now in the season. 6 of the next 9 games are at home. And I look at that and say this is an absolutely critical stretch because that takes you to about the midway point of the season, 18 games. But these are difficult home games. 4 of these 6 home games I look at as very tough matchups to win. Seattle, obviously, this weekend. Atlanta, Orlando, and Dallas. Those are 4 of arguably the better teams in the league. So you have to be able to take care of business against those 4. And again, I'm talking about you want to get to certain marks by certain points of the season. So if you look at the next 9 games, it gets you to 18 games about halfway through. You want to be at about 45 points at the end of the season if you're going to make the playoffs. So you want to be at about 23 points to get to that. So that's 11 points in the next 9. If you get to 27 points, I think you're sitting in a very strong position, considering that you'll have a good chunk of your home games. 10 of your home games have been played by that point. So for me, 11 to 15 points in the next 9 games for the Fire, that's the mark I'm looking at. And this 6 of those home games, you've got to take advantage.
100%, Paul. When you look at last year, Philly got in with 42 points. So this is a next 9 games, and especially 6 being at home. 15 points. I know you said 11, but I think the 15 points would give them, an unbelievable start to the season. I think that's doable because at home, the Fire have been, I don't want to jinx them or anything. They've been very good. They've been a very good team at home. So there's no place like home. And I think this is a great start to the season, but to continue their momentum now with this stretch of home games.
And if you go look at the MLS standings, I mean, it's very difficult to win on the road in MLS. I think there's just 1 or 2 teams that have multiple wins on the road early in the season or winning records on the road early in the season. So you have to take care of your games at home to make up for the fact that it's so tough to win on the road. Obviously, they need to pick up a couple wins on the road somewhere, but when you look at a stretch of a season where you have 2/3 of the game at home, that becomes an important stretch simply because it's an advantage, and you have to take advantage of it. And I look at a team like Orlando. Early in the season, people wanted to call them one of the better teams in the league. Well, it's no surprise they played 5 games at home early in the year, and they went undefeated. So that just goes to show what it can do for you if you can take care of business at home.
And we've been talking a lot throughout the course of these shows about the combinations up front. And we see Nemanja Nikolic scoring, and we see David Accam working well with him. That's encouraging as we continue to go forward.
I love that, and I think when you saw the expression when Nikolic scored with Accam. I mean, he was so happy, and I think for me, you have a guy, I mean, who's a pure goal scorer, 6 goals, and I think the way he scored his goals, I mean, we talked about it's great. Sapong gets 3 goals in 1 game. I'm not going to take that, but for me, a forward is that when in every 2 games, he's on the score sheet, and this is what this guy has. He has 6 goals. He could have easily had 10.
Yeah, especially a couple of times gets called offside. He's right there towing the line, and we almost get one in the 94th minute. So we'll see what the Chicago Fire do this coming Saturday as they take on Seattle. Clint Dempsey and also Jordan Morris and the Seattle Sounders come to town. The month of May is Stroke Awareness Month, and the Fire are teaming up with their partner UI Health to educate the community on stroke prevention and response. The Fire's next home match against Seattle Saturday will be Stroke Awareness Night presented by UI Health. You can visit chicago-fire.com/stroke awareness for more information. Get your tickets now at 8 o'clock start at Toyota Park. We come back, we'll be chatting with Chicago Fire goalkeeper Matt Lamson. It's Chicago Fire Weekly presented by the Private Bank.
Baseball is back in Chicago, and Wrigleyville Sports has everything you need to cheer on the reigning World Series champs. Browse our massive selection of brand new hats, t-shirts, and souvenirs. Rock the same jersey as your favorite player, or let us customize one for you. And there's still time to get your hands on World Series champions gear. Whether you're on your way to the bleachers or cheering from home, Wrigleyville Sports is your one-stop shop for everything Cubs. Come see us at 959 West Addison, across the street from Wrigley Field, open 7 days a week, and 24/7 on WrigleyvilleSports.com.
In case you need anything, just give me a call. Thank you.
P.O. Box 17. Of course I'm a real company.
You got the area code.
Everything your customers see tells a story. Let the UPS store help you tell the right one. From business cards and banners to expertly packed shipments to mailboxes with a real street address. Come in today for help.
From ballparks to amusement parks and hot dogs to haute cuisine, visit enjoyillinois.com for trip ideas. Brought to you by the Illinois Office of Tourism, proud partner of the world champion Chicago Cubs. Illinois, are you up for amazing?
Whatever you're getting ready for, come into Supercuts for our attention to detail and signature hot towel finish. So you're not just ready, but super ready. Check in online today.
If you're talking, they will hear you.
Why are we getting killed like this?
Kyle's not here. Got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah. 0 tolerance. He's out for the season.
Harsh.
Hey, he knew not to drink. We've made that clear to all of our kids, right?
No, not really.
Bill, if we don't tell them what we expect and why they shouldn't drink, how are they going to know?
Talk. They hear you. For more information, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Welcome back, Chicago Fire Weekly, presented by the Private Bank. Fred Hubner along with Paul Tenorio, Frank Lopez, and Chicago Fire goalkeeper Matt Lamson, nice enough to join us. Matt, got your first start over the weekend.
That's right.
Not a win, but not a loss. So how'd things go?
Well, thanks for having me, first of all. It's always a pleasure to see the gifted magi. But yeah, thank you very much. It's really good to get back on the field. It feels great. Something that I don't take for granted. And I mean, I was dying this whole year. I wanted to help the team win and show how far I've come just in the off season. So I'm glad I got my opportunity.
Matt, in your situation, I mean, it was the first start in 8 matches. Mm-hmm. How difficult is it, or what's your preparation like every day in training? But then when you get an opportunity to play, then how many games for yourself does really take to get the timing, the sharpness back in the goalkeeping position, which is very difficult?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. A lot of people ask that. And one of the things that I focus on is I prepare every single day and every single week as if I'm going to play. And that speaks volumes for every single player that doesn't get the opportunity. They all do the same thing, and that's what breeds competition and success. So I've been waiting since the first week of preseason to get this opportunity, and if you work that way, you'll be prepared when you get the opportunity to show what you can do. And credit to the type of guys that we have on our team, because right before the game, Dax is telling everybody, listen, we've got Drew and we've got Matt making our first starts of the year. We need to be there for them. Everybody's going to make mistakes, but we gotta pick these guys up if they are struggling. And that's a credit to the guys we have on the team. And it makes it so much easier when the whole rest of the team has confidence in you. I can imbue confidence on the whole rest of the team, and I think it showed in the first 45 minutes. It was the best 45 minutes we've played in probably 2 years, and you could feel it on the field. And I think I don't want to say that it's all because of me, but I think the whole team felt good, and that's really nice to see.
Matt, I remember talking to you when you first came back to preseason here, and you felt like you had improved a lot over the offseason, and I want to ask you, what were the areas you focused on the most? I know for me, one of them, at least, I felt like that's the Matt that I heard from early in the preseason when you had a guy coming at you and you dribbled by him in the box, and I go, there's Matt Lamson, a little Deacon move.
Obviously I haven't been working as hard on my beard game as you have.
I got my cap still alive in the playoffs, so I'm not shaving yet.
It looks great. But yeah, one of the biggest things that has improved, not necessarily even just skill level, but I've worked, I can't have any expletives, so I've worked my tail off with my feet in distribution in the off season, but more than anything, it's just a confidence thing. I know that Pano has confidence in me. I know the whole rest of the team, just from my performance in the start of preseason, they know that they feel great passing me the ball. And when the team has confidence in you like that, I exude confidence on the rest of the team, and it makes it so much easier. And one of the biggest differences in terms of feet for goalkeepers and anybody on the field is I know where my options are before I get the ball, and awareness-wise, I know where I'm going to play the ball before I get it. So when your first touch is good and you know where you're going to play the ball, it makes your job so much easier. It decides where you're playing the ball before you even get it. And that's been the biggest difference for me coming into the season.
With all the pickups in the offseason, all the changes in the midfield, bringing in Basti and Dax, as you mentioned, and also Janino, does it have a different feel to it this year than it did last year, the whole team?
It's huge. To me, we have the best midfield in the league with those three guys, and every single one of them wants the ball. Every single one of them are in the spots they need to be. I mean, Dax McCarty, to me, is the most underrated player in the league. He does so much that we don't even realize what he's doing until, obviously, with New York, they're seeing now it's a carousel of who they can find to replace him. And having three guys that are always available, always in the right spot, and always want the ball makes my job a lot easier. Makes our center backs' jobs and our outside backs cake, And so those guys are huge, not only on the field but leadership-wise, it's fantastic.
I wanted to ask Matt this question because I think with the keepers is a little bit different, the mental part of the game, because I think when you're a player, you make one mistake, the next opportunity is going to be there. But sometimes when in your position, a mistake is made, everybody makes such a big deal about it. So how you're an experienced goalkeeper, when something like that happens, what's the first thing in your mind? How can you put that behind and focus on the next play?
That's exactly what you have to. I equate it exactly to a quarterback in football. If he throws an interception, he's on to the next play. He's already thinking about the next series that he's going to have. Goalkeeper, same exact thing. As you mentioned, if I make a mistake, it's a lot bigger of a deal than if the forward makes a mistake. And it's difficult from a mental aspect. But for me, especially as I've continued and grown as a goalkeeper, it's a lot easier for me to put mistakes behind me. And last year, with Sean behind me and the pressure for him to play, made the mistakes so much brighter. So it was very difficult because every single mistake I would make, it was as if, well, obviously Sean's going to play now. And this year, I have so much more confidence. And not only does confidence limit mistakes, but it also means that I'm going to play without even thinking. And that's when I'm at my best, is if I'm not worried to make a mistake, I'm not going to make a mistake. I mean, it's going to happen, but...
Chicago Fire goalkeeper Matt Lampson. We come back, we'll talk about more things he does, not just on the pitch at Toyota Park and on the road. Don't forget the Chicago Fire this coming Saturday. Seattle comes to town at 8 o'clock start. Get your tickets to chicago-fire.com. You're watching Chicago Fire Weekly, presented by the Private Bank.
We don't give up. We don't quit. We keep going. Day in, day out. We fight on. Why? Because we are champions. Be a champion.
Don't let pain knock you out of the ring. Our hand, wrist, and elbow experts are pioneers worldwide. You need us in your corner. Midwest Orthopedics at Rush. Make an appointment today. After our minimally invasive spine surgery, 80% of golfers maintained or improved their handicap. Be treated by the pros to play more like a pro. Midwest Orthopedics at Rush. Make an appointment today.
Welcome back in. Chicago Fire Weekly, presented by the Private Bank. Fred Hubner, along with Paul Tenorio, Frank Lopez, and Chicago Fire goalkeeper Matt Lampson. And Matt, you and I have something in common. And no, I have not stopped PKs before. I have not yelled at guys in the box or anything. But cancer survivors.
Oh, I thought you were going to say we love donuts.
Well, we do love donuts, too. We're going to get to that, too.
Okay.
I love donuts apparently more than you love donuts.
Wow.
But because of all the things, I mean, you and the Lamstrong Foundation, and we have right here the MLS Award for the Humanitarian of the Year for last year. I know you have not seen this yet.
No, it's been so long I didn't even know that I won that.
Yes.
I forgot.
So you got that, but yeah, you do a lot with your foundation, and a lot of different things. I know that there was a nice little donation to the Lurie Children's Hospital. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, little apparently is relative because it was a huge amount to me, but to you, I guess you're rolling in the money. So, but it's a huge. It was our first big donation to a great cause. Everything that I do, our priorities aligned, and I was really excited to team up with them, and just. The city of Chicago welcoming my foundation and the help from the Chicago Fire and everybody in the front office has been phenomenal, and I owe a lot to them.
Well, and speaking of that, you took all the kids, a lot of the kids, recently to the Shed Aquarium.
That's right. I had two cancer patients and their families, and I hosted them. And I love the Shed Aquarium, and I wanted to share that with a few families that don't necessarily always get to go, and it was an awesome experience.
And I was really bummed out in January because you started at like 10 o'clock, but you did the donut tour.
Yep.
And I was working till noon, and I couldn't hop on the bus.
Did you get invited or no?
Well, I was just going to jump in.
These tickets were open.
They met at Fado's. I figured I'd just hop on in.
That's right.
Yeah, so the donut tour is something, obviously, you plan on doing it again, hopefully next season.
Yep. I was contemplating doing it in the summer that we could walk and then you could eat donuts and try and work off some calories. But I think a wintertime is a nice time. You get the coffee and it's a nice ambiance. But we're definitely going to do it again. It was a great time.
Yeah, and then one last thing, and it's not any less important than the other things, but also each and every game you bring someone out to the contest.
Yeah. At first it started as just home games back in Columbus, but now it's every single game. I had one in LA, and every story is completely different, but they're all intertwined with cancer, and I can relate to them, and it's heartbreaking, it's humbling, but all I want to do is for them to hear my story and be inspired and offer hope for what they can do once they're done with treatment.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely.
I was able to
thing.
talk to Matt about it last year, and I think one thing that that he told me that stayed with me is it's about inspiring those kids, but also I think it gives hope to the parents as well, to see somebody who's gone through it, beat it, and now is a professional athlete. It uplifts the whole family when you meet them on the field, right?
Absolutely, especially with the younger kids that might not even really know their situation, and you've got parents that know the severity of it. For them to see what their kid can be is really moving.
When you see the kids, and do they ask you questions? I mean, how the difficult things that you've been through, and then obviously they see you now as a professional athlete.
Right.
I mean, that's got to be amazing. Do they ask you, how do you make the save or anything like that?
It all depends. Sometimes they're starstruck and they literally don't say anything, so I have to get it going.
Yeah.
Some are very vocal, very amicable, and it's fun to engage with them. But everybody, I mean, I understand on both sides because I've been in their shoes seeing Brad Friedel for the first time, and I'm just staring at him like this, you know. So I just try and make it a memorable experience for him and be an example of.
So when you bring them to the games and they see you there, they say, Matt, you're so different than when we met you person, and then, like, and then we see you at the games.
That's right. That's exactly right. I mean, it's an awesome experience, and if you guys ever want to help out, by all means.
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
Yeah, we'd definitely be happy to.
Well, after this, I'm switching back to soccer now a little bit.
Okay.
Coming up, you got some tough games, and this one, especially against Seattle, when you look at their attacking talent, guys like Jordan Morris, like Clint Dempsey, Nico Lodero, who had such a big impact last year, defending MLS Cup champions. What is the task defensively? How do you try to contain a front line like that?
You know, I think it's just more of what we did against LA. LA, defensively, organizationally, I thought we were impeccable. They really had no opportunities in the run of play. We need to do more of that. And I think Johan Kapeloff and Brandon Vincent have been fantastic this year. Brandon Vincent's improvement on last year is it's unbelievable, you know. And the way that our back four and our D mids have worked to limit opportunities, we just need to do more of that. Obviously, we need to pay close attention to Clint Dempsey and Lodero because they're very dangerous. And also on set pieces with guys like Chad Marshall and Torres coming up, we got to pay attention, and we can't let things like that happen. That happen in LA. But I think our mentality and the way we play at home, we're going to have a great fight, and I think 3 points is more than possible. I think it needs to happen, and we will be ready.
Any crazy preparation routines before the match?
You know, a lot of things that I probably shouldn't mention on air, but there are things. But then once I get to the stadium, very strict routine. If I go to the hot tub, and I'm in the hot tub for about 15 minutes and 32 seconds anymore, and I'm overcooked any less, and I'm not warm enough. So I get out of the hot tub, and then I start to change. Usually the people with the cameras come in, so I bail, and I go and I start stretching, and then I come back in when they leave, get dressed, and by that time I go out early before the rest of the team. So it's very regimented, and if it's broken, it's not going to be a good day. So I try and do the same thing every single time.
And I will say the last part of his prep is he walks on the field and makes fun of me on his way to the goal for warm-up.
I would never leave that out, but I didn't want to embarrass you. But every single time I have to make some sort of comment, whether it's about your appearance or comments that you need to make later in the broadcast. So.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, well, as the nice thing is, athletes have fun, and you definitely do. Hopefully, everybody will have fun this coming weekend and get 3 points against Seattle. Thanks a lot for jumping on in.
Thank you very much for having me, guys. It was awesome.
Chicago Fire goalkeeper Matt Lamson, nice enough to join us. Don't forget, get on out to the match this Saturday as the Seattle Sounders come to town. 8 o'clock start at Toyota Park. We come back, we'll take a deeper look into what the Chicago Fire have been doing of late right here on Chicago Fire Weekly, presented by the Private Bank.
You have too many bills but not enough money? Would you like one lower payment for all debt, little or no money down? I'm attorney Peter Francis Geraci. Our Chapter 13 plans stop collections and creditors in one day for as low as $95 every 2 weeks. Get rid of bill collectors and high car payments. Get one lower payment today. Call or click now.
When you need to be debt-free, call 1-800-CALL-PFG. That's 1-800-CALL-PFG.
Whoa. You're not taking these.
Hey. You're not taking those.
Whoa. You're not taking that. Come with me.
You're not taking that.
You're not taking that.
You're not taking that.
Mom, I'm taking the Subaru.
Don't be late. Even when we're not there to keep them safe, our Subaru Outback will be.
Love. It's what makes a Subaru a Subaru.
Every 26 seconds, a child drops out of high school. 1 out of 3 are overweight or obese. With your help, we can improve those odds. Through grants and scholarships, the USTA Foundation supports a national network of programs that bring tennis and education together. A powerful combination that helps under-resourced youth lead healthy and productive lives. Help us serve up dreams. Donate today. Please visit USTAFoundation.com.
Hit escape with great deals on great gear, like Oakley Holbrook sunglasses for under $70, only at Bass Pro Shops.
From ballparks to amusement parks and hot dogs to haute cuisine, visit enjoyillinois.com for trip ideas. Brought to you by the Illinois Office of Tourism, proud partner of the world champion Chicago Cubs. Illinois, are you up for amazing?
It's time for Fire Field Vision, powered by NovaCare. Frank Klopas, Paul Tenorio, me, I'm Fred Hubner, and we've talked a lot about the first half, the first 45 minutes, probably the best 45 minutes of the season for the Chicago Fire. I mean, we're going to talk about some of those good things and exactly why it was so good.
100%. I mean, we talked with Paul. We watched the game. We went over, and we talked about it. I think in possession, I think they were so good. Their ability now, when they needed to play quick, they did. When they needed to slow the game down, they did. When they switched the point of attack, they had LA chasing, defend. When they needed to play and break in transition, they made good decisions. So I think for me, the 45 minutes, and then you get the 2 goals in a great build-up play, and I think was excellent. And obviously things don't always work out over 90 minutes. Little things did happen that second half that we talked about, right, Paul? And I know we're going to show some clips also.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I grew up in playing a possession-style soccer. I know transition and counter-attacking soccer is big right now, counter-pressing, all of that. But when I watched the Fire last year, I think we talked about this a lot over the course of last season. This was a team that had trouble keeping the ball. And the pressure that you're under as a team, A, losing the ball in bad spots, but B, when you're chasing the game a lot, you wear down over the course of 90 minutes, and that's where goals started to happen and they started to lose games. And, the big question I thought going into this offseason was how can they find a way to keep the ball more? And some of the clips that we have here today will show a much better job at keeping possession, working the ball around the field, and setting up opportunities by being patient on the ball, which is just as important as finding that killer pass.
I agree with you, and I think you said a very good point. I think when you lose the ball and I think the momentum changes, which happened in the second half, you give up goals. And I felt the second half, I think, as good of midfield players they do have with Dax and Schweinsteiger and Juninho, I think a lot of times they bypass the midfield. They played a little bit too direct, they forced balls, and I felt they could have taken more advantage because when L.A., they brought Dos Santos and Boateng out wide, and they put Zardes. They did have an advantage in the middle, that 3v2 with those three guys, and they really never found them and played to them to kind of dictate the tempo and slow the game down, and they forced it at times.
Well, Frank, it's like that clip we showed in the first segment where Drew Connor dribbled into pressure. It's a small, simple thing, right? But if you turn and you play that ball back to Dax, who, like Matt said in the last segment, he's always in the right place to relieve that pressure. That's a lesson Drew will learn just by playing, but those are the moments and the differences between this year's Fire team and last, is that Dax knows to be right there to relieve that pressure, keep the ball, and that's how you're going to break a team down.
And they always want the ball. All three of them in the midfield always want the ball.
And you can play them, with pressure on, and with the guy in the back, because if you play it to them, and, they're going to play the ball. A lot of times there's movement because they want to be involved and touch the ball. But if we go to these clips, we'll show a couple clips that exactly say that. And then you can just see from the throw-in, you see they have it, one side of the field right away. They switch the point of attack. They get it now. LA's got to shift from one side to the other. Juninho gets it here. And now just quick little, they slow it down. They pick up the pace. They get it there with Dax. There's movement. One guy goes. The spaces are filled. Connor gets it. He gets it. He moves away to create that space. Again, from one side of the field, they're able to break pressure and now switch the point of attack to the other side. And it's very difficult for teams not to stay organized like LA. There's bigger gaps. Spaces are going to be there. And you see Akan does a very good job. George plays it in, plays it back outside. Dax gets it. Juninho's open. And just a great opportunity with about 15, 20 passes,
And Frank, it's like you're saying, it's knowing when to speed the game up. It's knowing when to slow the game down as well. And it's a similar thing here. Look at the pressure LA's applying. They're playing out of the back, playing out of pressure, quick, short passes, boop, 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 turn, switch the ball, knock it to the other side. Now you're out of pressure, and look at the space you're in on the left-hand side because you're able to play out of pressure like that. This is the kind of movement and passing you want to see if you're a Fire. And then you've got a player like Akam who can carry the ball in space and create a dangerous opportunity with the pass when you work the ball and find somebody like that.
Yeah, and then you have the ability to move your team up and be better organized, because those second balls that come out, now you're able to win. And now, obviously, you see the ball coming out. LA's a little bit tired. Dax is in a good position. He picks this one up. He gets it. Pressure back on. He finds a little combination here, which leads to the PK.
It's just like what Lampson said. Dax in the right, the little things, right? Being in the right lane to intercept that pass and start the counterattack right away.
And then for me, when you organize, and they did very well. A long diagonal goal by Van Damme, and then just Dax's ability to recognize one-touch pass in transition. And this where the Fire is deadly. And this where they were able to do. When he was on in transition, they played it. When he wasn't on, they kept the ball. So their decision-making on the ball was fantastic.
And I want to note, again, we've talked a lot about how Akam has grown. We're talking right now about keeping the ball in possession. But when you're patient in possession, it opens up space, like Frank said. And you see when you have a player like Akam in space like that, he picks up the ball, he turns. Within a few touches, he's covered 30 yards of space. And now, instead of covering the next 30 yards to try to get to the box, he picks his head up, he sees Nikolic making the run, he plays the ball in, and it's a goal. This is the kind of stuff that happens with movement, with patience, with an understanding for your teammates. It's a much different Fire team than we saw last year. But I think, again, a big part of this is going to be doing that over the course of 90 minutes, both at home and on the road. I think LA in the first half gave a lot of space, too much space, and the Fire took advantage of it. You have to maintain that level of composure when they're pressing you high, and I think there were some times in the second half where they rushed things, they forced passes versus staying patient. That led to turnovers, and that led to opportunity.
I agree with you, and I think that was a different. I think they wanted to push to get that third goal, and then at times they played a little bit direct. They bypassed it. Of course, obviously, the pressure that LA came up, that urgency, they were down 2-0. They pushed the game. I think the turnovers then, I think hurt the Fire a little bit because they lost the momentum. Then LA had the pressure on. They dropped a little bit too deep, a little bit the second half. Now, LA was able to win those second balls as they were being cleared, and then the pressure was on.
That was Fire Field Vision, powered by NovaCare. The Chicago Fire taking on the Seattle Sounders this coming Saturday, an 8 o'clock start at Toyota Park. Get your tickets at chicago-fire.com. I couldn't believe it. I'm looking here, and the Fire have not played against Clint Dempsey either home and road in years. And it would be fine if he didn't play again this Saturday.
I think he'll be on the field, and he's a tough task to mark. Let me tell you something.
We'll talk a little bit more about the Sounders when we come back. It's Chicago Fire Weekly, presented by the Private Bank.
powerful than the winds of a Cat 5 hurricane? An Echo backpack blower. So, yeah, it'll clear a path. Power on and on.
John, you're home.
What's going on?
It's this paint, Valspar Reserve. Nothing stays on the wall. Not anything. Not any of these things, John.
Right, Valspar Reserve. Super stain resistant and scrubbable.
And this color, still perfect.
Yeah, looks great, Val. How much coffee have you had?
3 cups. 4.
Valspar Reserve Paint and Primer with Hydrochroma technology. Now the colors you love stay the colors you love. Exclusively at Lowe's.
Find a location near you at chicago-fire.com/youth.
If you have recently suffered an injury or had surgery, let the experts at NovaCare Rehabilitation get you back to an active lifestyle. Our comprehensive programs deliver the highest level of physical therapy, hand therapy, sports medicine, and work health rehabilitation. Our highly skilled therapists develop individualized treatment plans to exceed your expectations. So, don't live in pain. To request an appointment today, visit NovaCare.com. NovaCare, the power of physical therapy.
The blades of a combat chopper spin at 380 RPMs. Not even close to an Echo trimmer. Now that's shock and awe. Power on and on.
Welcome back to Chicago Fire Weekly, presented by the Private Bank. As we now take a look at the Seattle Sounders, time for the Valspar Primer, presented by Valspar, the official paint of your Chicago Fire. The Sounders went up against the TFC team last week, who had 3 guys sitting out, and Seattle still ends up a 1-0 loser on their home field. And so they're going to be anxious to get out on the pitch on Saturday against the Fire.
Yeah, disappointing result for the Sounders. Toronto is, to me, maybe the deepest team in the league right now. But yeah, anytime a team comes without 3 of its top players, you expect to win a game at home.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that Brian Schmetzer knows that that's 3 points dropped. And, look, it's not as big of a loss because it's cross-conference, so it's not like it's a 6-point game.
Right.
But certainly you would expect the message there to be, we need to make up those points right away if we can.
Definitely, because we talked about last week, the result that they had in L.A., and then they go home after that result, and then they get a 3-3 tie at home against New England, and the game was right open. I tell you what, New England went up 3-0, and they had chances to put the game away, but that's how dangerous this team could be, because they do have a lot of quality, and the minute you let them into the game, with Lodero, with Dempsey, with Morris, Bruins playing the top, and he's a physical presence there. They have a lot of quality in the final third.
This is a very interesting Sounders team, different than they were last year when they won the MLS Cup. And it's been interesting to hear what Brian Schmetzer is saying in Seattle. They're still trying to figure out why they're playing differently, because it's not a philosophical change from the coaching staff. It's just the style of play. And we'll see that in these clips that we have of Seattle. Something that's different about them is how often they're using the wings and getting balls into the box. So let's take a look at the clips from the Seattle Sounders that we pulled here.
Well, yeah, you see, we talked about the outside backs getting forward, Paul, and then obviously the danger guy, anytime you get in that final third, is Lodero, because he's so good on the ball. And obviously then you have Jones making that overlap and run, and, you have to track him.
Absolutely. Jovan Jones, maybe the best fullback in MLS this year. He's been a huge part. Here he is again, overlapping on the left. Just been a huge part of what Seattle has done. Dangerous ball in the box. Now look at the numbers that Seattle keeps in the box. They win the second ball. Service comes right back into the box. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys within 12 yards of the goal, and they create dangerous opportunities.
Morris picks that up, and we go back to the game against L.A., and they were all over L.A., but again, it's just the opportunity, their numbers. Jones goes out wide, Lodero finding those pockets, and then just the runners in the box. You have Dempsey, you have Bruin, you have Morris get in there. They throw a lot of numbers forward.
Absolutely. They look to play through the wings, and I think that's a bit different about this team. Right away, Here they get space up the middle, but where does the ball go? Back out to the left side, throwing numbers into the box, and it's a goal. I mean, this is what Seattle has done all season long when they've been good.
And both outside backs. On one side with Jones, the other side, Delem getting forward. They do have pace. They both push forward high up the pitch when they have the ball. And, you know, this is the game where, I mean, it was 3-0. They could have scored 6 against L.A. There was so much space to get at them, but you can just see their tendencies. You know, both outside backs, when they have possession, they're both going to push very high up the pitch. Everything still comes centrally when they can with Lodero, and you're right. I think the one thing with them is that they do get a lot of crosses in the box, and maybe that's why they made that change where they bring a guy like Bruin centrally who's so good in the air.
Exactly right. I think Brian Schmetzer was, again, looking at the analytics and the stats of his team and saying, we're serving all these balls into the box, and they weren't converting any of the crosses. And he says, well, why aren't we playing the short passes that we played last year, getting the ball to Lodero's feet, finding Clint Dempsey, letting him create? Okay, it's not happening, it's not happening. How can we fix it? Well, let's put a guy in Will Bruin up as the target striker, move Jordan Morris out to the wing. Let's take advantage of these crosses with somebody who can finish them. And also, when you have a guy like Bruin who applies pressure in the box, that's going to create these second ball situations. And now you've got that second wave of guys coming through where now you have enough numbers in the box that it's kind of chaotic. And again, this is a team that can beat you that way, and they're playing that way, but you can't relax in that second way. You have to track as midfielders because you have guys like Dempsey, like Lodero. They understand space. They understand delaying their runs so that they can pick up the ball 18, 20 yards from goal and turn and have a go. And Clint Dempsey, you give him an inch of space, he's going to have a look at your goal.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Paul, and that's where they're dangerous. I think those late runs from midfield, obviously with Morris, you know, he has that pace to get behind you, but he's still so smart where he can come in between the pockets and get the ball, and every time the ball goes out wide, and mostly, I think more on the left side with Jones, they do a very good job just making those late runs, and it's very hard for the back line at times because you're so focused on the player with the ball and service coming in. A lot of times as a midfielder, you know, when they see these runners, they have to make sure that they recover well, they track them because they're extremely dangerous, and then, you know, Jones can provide good service, and also on the other side with this young player, Delem.
Well, Frank, I think this is one of those games where you start talking about matchups, and you know that this is a team that is tilted towards the left side because Jones is so good getting forward, because Morris is so quick. He forces the fullback to stay deep, and that allows the space for Jones to overlap. It's going to put a lot of pressure on the right midfielder, whoever it is, whether it's Solignac, whether it's Akam, whether it's Deleu, whoever you put out there. They have to be very, very disciplined defensively and track those runs. But I would guess that we see Dax McCarty tilting over to that right side to help out, to make sure that the overloads that Seattle tries to create don't happen on that side.
Yeah, and I think Dax and also with Juninho, because Schweinsteiger at times he lines up on the left side. But I would bet that I think they push Morris out on that left to have those matchups and those overloads out on the left side.
We'll see also if Drew Connor, who got his first start at that right back position, if he again is out there again, because as you said, it's going to be difficult because Jovan Jones is always coming and also Morris is always on that side. So that's a look at the Seattle Sounders. They'll be in town an 8 o'clock kick on a Saturday night at Toyota Park. Get your tickets at chicago-fire.com. We come back, we'll take a look around the league of Major League Soccer. You're watching Chicago Fire Weekly, presented by the Private Bank.
Welcome to Elk Grove Village. Our growing industrial park is the largest in North America. It makes sense. We're close to O'Hare, major highways, and rail lines, putting us first class in business class. We appreciate that a strong business park means a high quality of life for village residents. It's what motivates us to be beyond business friendly. Elk Grove Village. Makers wanted.
No bars. Oh no, looks like somebody needs a new network.
When I got this unlimited plan, they told me they were all the same.
They're not. Verizon has the largest, most reliable 4G LTE network in America. It's basically made for places like this.
Honey, what if it was just us out here?
Right. So I ordered you a car. Thank you. You don't want to be out here at night because of the coyotes.
Okay, thanks, bud. Bye.
Be nice to have your car for some shelter. Bye.
When it really, really matters, you need the best network and the best unlimited. Just $45 per line for 4 lines.
Hi, Russ for U.S. Waterproofing. Looking for a company to repair your home can be stressful. Look to us, as many of your neighbors have, like Mrs. O'Brien in Elmhurst. We sealed cracks in her crawl space. Or Mr. Weber in Orland Park. We installed a battery backup sump pump. And Mr. Kaplan in Northbrook. He needed structural repair after he noticed cracks in his brickwork. We've helped many of your neighbors.
Schedule your free consultation today at uswaterproofing.com. US Waterproofing. A better basement starts with us.
Beautiful Wolf Lake Park in Hammond, Indiana plays host to Chicagoland's most exciting amateur triathlon, Leon's world's fastest triathlon, America's Race, offering a weekend full of excitement and outstanding competition, dedicated first and foremost to honoring America's servicemen and women and our veterans. America's Race, presented by Ram, America's Truck. Sunday, June 4th. Visit leonstriathlon.com.
Welcome back in. Chicago Fire Weekly presented by the Private Bank at the Heineken Pub 97 at the Private Bank Fire Pitch. Usually on Wednesdays. Next week a Tuesday show because the Fire in action on Wednesday night at Toyota Park. Major League Soccer, each and every week we talked about Seattle playing at home after they get a nice result the week before. They lose to an undermanned TFC team. Any team can win. Are there any surprises to you so far after these 9-10 weeks?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think Minnesota United being able to claw back from what they looked like the first 3 weeks of the season, huge win at home against Sporting Kansas City. I think that was absolutely a stunner. They're a team that surprised. Houston is another team that surprises. And when I look at this season, I look too at individuals that have surprised me. I wrote today for 442 about some of the guys who have stood out early on. And for me, there's a couple guys, two forwards that lead the league in scoring right now. You're talking about C.J. Sapong. He had the hat trick the other day. He's actually scored in 5 of the 9 games for Philadelphia this year. He is getting close to double-digit scoring. He's never done that in his career in Major League Soccer. He's one of the surprises. And then Cubo Torres, Wilmer Cabrera at this point, he's the Cubo whisperer, man. This guy scores a ton of goals for him at Chivas USA. That team folds. Kubo goes to Houston, literally had never scored a goal in Houston Dynamo orange jersey until this season. Cabrera takes over. This guy leads the league in goal scoring right now. So those guys, to me, are the two of the biggest surprises in MLS so far this season.
Shows you what kind of impact a coach can have if he believes in you and gives you confidence at times. But I do agree with you with just the parity. I was watching a game a couple weeks ago, and I know Alexi Lalas was talking about this. He just said that I'm not saying that this league is the best or has the best quality, but it's definitely the most competitive, and I have to agree with that because if you look at other leagues around the world, you look at the EPL, La Liga, there's 2 or 3 teams or 4 teams in some leagues, and the rest are like 20, 30 points behind. They have no chance of winning it. Here, I know it's early, and I agree with Paul. Let's not get excited early on in the season, but you can just see KC goes to Minnesota. Minnesota wins a big game. New England goes to Seattle. They 3-3. They could easily have won that game, and then obviously Toronto goes, and this is the one game we were talking. I was saying, there's no way. It's going to be difficult for Toronto to go, but it just shows you it's so unpredictable. It's very hard to say, well, this is going to happen this week or that's going to happen.
And I think in my experience covering Orlando City and then now being here in Chicago, both Schweinsteiger and Kaká have said one of the first things they noticed is that no matter what game you play, you're in for a battle. Any team can beat any team, and it's different than playing for Bayern Munich or playing for AC Milan where 10 of the teams you're going to play, that's a win.
Yeah.
And maybe more than that in certain leagues. If you're Bayern Munich, pretty much almost any game you play. So it's a big part of this league, but it's also the fun part. And, it makes me always every week as a columnist with 442 say, I don't want to write anything too serious because I'll look stupid the next week,
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I want to thank Matt Lamson for jumping on in and joining us. Lamson got his first start last week. We'll see if, in fact, he is in the net this coming Saturday. An 8 o'clock start on Saturday against Seattle. Jordan Morris and company. Get your tickets, chicago-fire.com. Don't forget, next Tuesday, it'll be Chicago Fire Weekly, presented by the Private Bank. Thanks for watching.
longer so that you don't feel pressure to talk for a minute. I cut quick, man.